Stas23 here. In today's knife therapy, we have the Knafs Co Lander. This knife comes in at $58 and comes in two different variations. The one you see here, and you can get it in an all blacked out version with the black wash blade. I preferred this one. That blue's my favorite color. And Knives was started by Mr. Ben Peterson, or Ben Banters on Instagram. And this is his third knife design. First, there was the Banter, which was a chunkier, more premium version of this knife pretty much, and done by We Knives. And then you had his Baby Banter, done by Civivi. So it's about in the middle of these two. It's a little bit smaller than the Banter, a good bit bigger than the Baby Banter, and a good bit cheaper than both of these knives. The OEM for the Lander is QSP Knives, and they usually do a pretty good job with their knives. Let's get the specs out of the way. You have a total length of 6.4 inches, so it's in that medium to smaller range. You have a blade length of 2.75 inches, so it's going to be legal in all areas with 3 and under blade laws that can have a locking knife. You have a grip area from here to the back of 3.1 inches, so it's going to be a tough stretch for your large, extra large hands. You have a handle scale thickness of 0.41 inches, so really thin in the scales, and the close width in the pocket still thin at 1.08 inches. Your blade stock thickness is coming in at 0.10, so that is about as thin as a Benchmade bug out. And the behind the edge thickness on my particular knife ranges from about 18 to 20 thousandths, and is sharpened at 20 degrees per side. I know for me, I was kind of hoping this knife would be Ontario Rat Model 2 killer, and we'll definitely have to see at the end of this video, but it's a lot. I got a lot of similarities. Got some things that I like more than the Ontario Rat 2, and some things that, I could go both ways. Let's take a close look at this. You have an excellent drop point blade shape that he made just long enough to where you can get your index finger at the end of it. I love that, so you can do those controlled cuts, really precise cutting right there. The drop point blade is pretty much a jack of all trades. It's probably my favorite blade shape to use. This one is in D2 steel, comes with a nice finished stonewash blade. You do have a sharpening choil right here, but it just barely clears the plunge, and after the testing, I sharpened this up, and as you can see, it widens in the back. So you might get one sharpening before you start to see that. Just depends on where your edge angle is at. You have a decent thickness out at the tip, so you shouldn't have to worry about that too much if you're doing a lot of carving, or getting splinters out of the wood or something. I don't know. You do have a very small row of fine cut jimping, but it's pretty much aesthetics, because for me, my thumb lands right there. And during the testing, I didn't really see a need for it anyway, so not a big deal to me. You have a pretty high flat ground blade that comes down to a decently thin edge. That, coupled with a pretty thin blade stock, this thing should be a pretty good slicer. Let's find out. Yep, we have a cardboard thief once again. I don't know why my dog insists on grabbing the cardboard. He doesn't even do anything with it. He just puts it all around the house. But the knife came really sharp, sliced really well. Ben does a good job of designing a simple knife that's just going to function good. It's a good blade shape, nice drop point, and it was performed really good. Nice and comfortable, perfect size, at least for me. One thing that I can hope for is that the edge performs better than, say, a Rat Model 2. And we'll have to wait and see later down the road. Now we move on to this piece of birch wood, and we're just testing the ergos and see how that edge is still biting. And I was kind of worried because the handle scales on this is a little thinner than I usually like to do stuff like this with, but it was very comfortable. It was performing great. Edge had a good bit of bite to it, and just a perfect blade shape for doing this type. One thing that I really love about this knife is something that the designer, Mr. Ben, kind of prides himself on, and something he likes is a knife that you can reach all the way to that tip. And what that does is it allows you to be able to really control that tip for precision cutting. And in this case, I use that, forward index finger grip quite often because I can get a good bit of pressure into whatever I'm cutting. It did excellent on the tubing, and the edge is still doing really well so far. I think the real test will be how that edge is once we get to the sisal rope. I'm crossing my fingers, but at this point, I'd say, it's holding up about as good as a Rat Model 2. And hopefully it'll exceed that once we get to the sisal rope, because the Rat 2 just doesn't make it that long once I get to the sisal rope portion. I like cutting those little corner pieces of that cardboard because if the edge isn't sharp, it's just going to fold it over. And here's where I noticed that the edge still has really good bite to it. It's slicing it really well. This is that 12-ounce denim, the rough stuff. I started rolling it a little bit looser and not as thick, just because it just destroys some of the edges, but did excellent. Right away, I was quite surprised on how cleanly it is pretty much push cutting this rope. Minimal pressure, the pinch grip was really comfortable. Now, whenever I was exerting a lot of pressure, not so much in this portion of the test, but when I put a lot of pressure in that pinch grip like that, I kind of felt the clip. It wasn't terrible or anything, but it's blasting through this rope. And the blade shape, of course, perfect for this. Nice drop point. You have that perfect belly up there in the front to do the rocking motion cuts, just the push forward cuts, drag cuts. Everything works really well. That's why, the drop point is such an amazing blade shape for just about everything. It was holding the edge, and I figured I would just cut as much rope as I had with me right here. And I end up making 41 cuts, and I definitely could have done more. Alrighty, I hope y'all enjoyed that cutting. I enjoyed making it for y'all. Let's see how that edge is on this piece of phone book paper, because it still felt really good. Let's check it out. I mean, it's not as sharp as it was in the beginning, but I'd say that's pretty darn good. It's got a few dings in the edge, not bad at all. Definitely performed better than my Rat Model 2 ND2. All right, now let's check out the deployment in action. This knife is riding on ceramic ball bearings and a ceramic detent ball. Good detent, thumb stud deployer. Just basically touch that. And I will say mine has gotten smoother and smoother as I carry it. Almost a free dropper. Perfectly fine with me. Very snappy. Love the action on this. Once you remove that lock bar tension, it definitely free drops down. You can also easily access those thumb studs on the left side and disengage that lock for all you lefties out there, especially being that you have tip up on both. You have tip up left or right hand carry on this one. Now let's take a look at the handle. This one has a blue peel ply G10. I would call that medium traction. It definitely offers some grip, but it's not tearing up my hands or anything. They are flat scales, but you do have a nice chamfer going all the way around it. And as you can see, hopefully, that they've rounded that edge right there. So they did a really good job of softening all the corners. No sharp spots where you don't want them to be. And one unique thing about this knife is the ease of removing these scales to put some aftermarket ones on there. I think it's a genius idea from Ben. I'll show you how that works in just a second. You have T6 hardware throughout. Of course, I would love to see T8, but I'm okay with it. You have a plate right here for the side that you're not going to be using the pocket clip. Deep carry, deep as they come. Let's check it out in the pocket. I found the pocket clip works really well. You have good lip right there. I didn't find it to be a hot spot or anything in the hand. No flipper tab to poke you. And it sits all the way down into the pocket, nothing showing. Now, we talked about how easy it is to change the scales without, when I say that, that's without messing with the action of the knife. You do have a Torx T8 for the pivot, but we're going to remove these two screws. I'm doing this in real time. So remove that first one. Put it to the side. I'm using an Audacious Concept driver. I love their drivers. Titanium driver. Let's see. I'm doing this. Let's see. Do they have? Yeah, they do have Loctite on them. Blue Loctite. And then you take this off right here. This little plate. And if I could have to take a guess, there's going to be, I would have to say there's probably going to be tons of different scale options. I'm sure that Ben will probably have on the site for you to choose from. And I'm sure, you know, I'm sure you'll have a lot of aftermarket companies make them. Now, once you remove that, the pivot is just, they have the counter bore, counter sunk hole to where you can lift this off and do the same, take the clip off and do the same. You don't have to mess with that pivot. So it makes it super easy and you don't have to mess with the knife. Like as soon as you put the scales back on there, your knife should be centered up like it was before and the action should be just as good as you had it before. And you'll have that same loop underneath there as you had before as well. Let me check these screws real quick. Yep, T6 on all the body screws and T8 on the pivot. The only other company that I know that does that is Three Rivers Manufacturing. They have the quick swap scales. I don't know if that's where you got it from, but definitely cool to see another company doing it. All right, now let's take a look at the inside of the knife. You have some internal milling on the show side scale, as you can see right there. None on the lock side. And your liners are inset into the G10. That's nice to see. You have 2 hourglass standoffs holding up the back right here. Flow through construction, easy to blow it out, wipe it out with a Q-tip or something like that. The weight on this feels really nice. Let's check it out on the scale. First off, in grams, 68.7 grams and 2.42 ounces. Yeah, you'll forget it's in the pocket. All right, now let's check out the lockup. You're sitting at around, I'd say 50%. No side to side, no up and down. And I'll be honest, I was thinking that I would easily better flex because of, you know, the thinness. But, I mean, I can muscle flex if I want to, but it's nice and rock solid. The access to the lock bar is good because this comes down a little bit lower than the lock side. You do have some texture on that lock bar. Easy to get to, easy to push over, no problem, and easy to disengage left-handed as well. Now for some quick size comparisons, we have the Benchmade Mini Bug Out and the Kaiser Original. I'll tell you what, it felt very similar in hand as the Mini Bug Out and even performed pretty much like the Mini Bug Out. So it really, you know, and the same goes with the original. And the original is a good bit bigger in dimension, not good bit, but it's bigger in dimension, overall dimensions. So is the Mini Bug Out, but not by much. Next up, we have the Ontario Rat Model 2 and the Kaiser Feist. It's smaller than both of these, much more similar to the Feist though. Lastly, we have the Civivi Elementum and the Kaiser Bag Letter 2 Mini. It's very close to the overall length as the Bag Letter Mini, but just a little bit shorter, and it's getting dwarfed by the Elementum. All right, now for my nitpicks complaints. I would have loved to see them pull this sharpening choil out some so you wouldn't have this flaring in the back after the first sharpening. And for all the jimping people, of course, extend this row of jimping so it's functional, not just aesthetically. Also, I don't recall, I don't think so, but they should definitely add some more hardware, because if it's easy to take apart, you know, these are small screws. They're easy to strip out and it's easy to lose. So I would have loved to see some extra hardware in the package, because it's usually, you know, not much more to do that. My final thoughts on the Lander. Do I recommend it? Yes. I think it's a great knife in that, you know, $50 to $60 price range. It, for me, kicked this one out of the pocket, you know, whenever I wanted something like this. I like the way it performed. It performed better, in my opinion. It lasted longer overall. It comes with G10. The action's much nicer and smooth. It comes with a deep carry pocket clip. And overall, it's just a knife I like better. You know, of course, $58 is a little high for a D2 knife, but you got to understand, you know, this is a small company making a smaller batch than, say, this company. And I don't think it's out of line. You know, I like supporting Ben because he's a super nice guy. And I think he does a great job with simple knives. You know, this is a simple knife done right. And he really, really thinks it out and tries to give you the best bang for your buck. He nailed it with the first design, the Banter, and I absolutely love the Baby Banter. It's one of my favorite pack knives, and fifth pocket carry knives is probably my favorite one. That blue and black looks great. So definitely can't wait to see what Ben does next. I know I will continue to support him. You know, it's always nice supporting someone as genuine, as nice as a person as Ben is. So there you go. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, please leave them down below. I hope everybody's having an absolute amazing day, and I will see y'all on the next one. Peace.